Hello everyone, and welcome to another amazing story. What if Azathoth was in love with Issei? This amazing story was written by Akamikami64. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. You came to fight an eldritch god, because of a dream? Rhea summarized slowly. You find that hard to believe? Valley countered calmly. This would seem almost typical for them, by the stories at least. He has a point, Azathoth pointed out before looking down at the hybrid. You're lucky you didn't piss off the wrong people with this stunt though. The fallen leader had no idea how correct he really was, but Valley wasn't about to bring up the insanity of the aborted timeline that he remembered. Even Albion didn't know about that yet. Look, I was sent an invitation to a fight. When I found a dragon posing as an island, I thought I found my opponent. They all paused as ankle-deep water briefly flooded into the warehouse before washing back out into the bay. Speaking of which, Sona said as they all felt a powerful weight in the air. Perhaps we should ask this one about his intentions. Rias hummed but didn't move. What I don't understand is how the leader of the fallen angels is wrapped up in all this, she asked evenly. Azathoth shrugged. Valley here is my ward. Both princesses raised an eyebrow at that vague explanation. Valley sighed as he stood up gingerly, ignoring the pain in his chest and limbs. I'm not a reincarnated devil, I'm half human, he explained offhandedly. Ah, Rhea said. So, sacred gear can be born to human hybrids. Still, those are rather amazing odds, Sona remarked. It was clear they wanted to ask more questions, but also knew they were unlikely to get anything. If you're wondering, I have no intention of helping the fallen angels wipe out the devils or anything like that. Not that Azathoth here would ever want that, Valley explained as he began to walk out of the warehouse, the fallen and devils following and watching him carefully. He stepped out to see a large figure looming over him, Off-Tang having reached the harbor and towered over everything. The mouth opened, an ancient voice rumbling through enormous fangs. Is there a reason for our squabble, dividing Drakeling? He asked with the grogginess only an immortal taking a long nap might exude. Right, who are you exactly? I apparently got the wrong dragon? Valley asked calmly. I am Off-Tang, the dragon answered, peering down at the hybrid with eyes that saw more than just sight. Whom did you seek conflict with? I've been having dreams for the past few days, Valley explained, of a great dragon at sea calling out for any that would fight him. That wasn't you? Off-Tang hummed like the rumbling of a tsunami before answering. These visions are not of my making, for I have received them the same. The eldritch nature of dragons gave you a glimpse at a message you did not read correctly. Are you saying Valley's dreams meant something else? Azathoth asked, causing the conversing pair to glance back at him, Rias and Sona standing nearby as they listened to the exchange. The leader of the Dead Gods Rebellion, Sisters of the Satans, Off-Tang greeted idly. I have dreamt of you three. From a mortal, that might be creepy. From an eldritch, it was unnerving at best, but they chose not to think much of it. The sight this one sees in slumber is not the call of a challenge, but a request for aid. An eldritch calls for help against a great sea dragon. His mind rationalized myself as the subject of the dream when he laid eyes upon my form, Off-Tang explained with a hum. Not uncommon with young mortal eldritch, so new to our ways. I'm sorry about the mix-up, Valley said with a head tilt. I don't suppose you know where I should have looked? That sea dragon is not within any realms you may reach from this world, half-breed. They turned sharply as Rias saw a fairly familiar eldritch in human skin. Oh, it's you, Rias recognized, relieved it wasn't an enemy. I believe your name was Gaktha? Call me as you wish, ruinous one, Gaktha said before her blank eyes looked upon Azathoth with an unpleasant gaze. Hey, it's been a while, Azathoth greeted with a smirk. I feel the urge to skin your fostered runt in front of your eyes for what he might have done, Gaktha said as she looked at the White Dragon Emperor. Valley felt something wash over his spine. Despite how she acted, he was almost positive this eldritch remembered the past timeline to some degree. She had been powerful. It was a shame he probably couldn't fight her without provoking the Eldritch Queen. But I have been ordered to play nice, as the Kungur phrased it, Gaktha added in disappointment. Oh, the Kungur? Off-Tang said with an enormous grin on his visage. And where might he be? I've been wanting to meet the center's center. The non-eldritch at the group were only vaguely surprised as the seemingly wise dragon shifted to a more playful attitude. He is calming down the queen, Gaktha answered flatly. When you say calming her down? Azathoth asked expectantly. He is reaching her center, Off-Tang said with a chuckle. I can hear them now that you mention it. You can hear them? Sona asked, glancing back to dry land and wondering just how close they were. Do not bother, Gactha said. Even across the vastness of the cosmos, all eldritch gods can sense when the Sultana and her Sultan join their flesh. Rias blinked. Question? Can they sense it when he does that with anyone? Gactha looked her square in the eye. Aquino seemed to enjoy learning of this facet of being intimate with the Kungur. Of course she did, Rias said with a sigh and a headshake. An exhibitionist's paradise, Sona opined as she looked up at Uftang. Will there be any issue if we take the barrier down? The eldritch god shook his head. Fret not, O devil of water. Without the whelp picking at me, I can disguise myself without being seen as an oncoming disaster. Then I'll let my peerage know the danger has passed, Sona said before pausing. Come to think of it, where is your own peerage, Rias? The daughter of the Gremory family scowled in concern at that, having wondered that We've been here the whole time. Rias inhaled sharply and was just short of jumping out of her skin as she looked behind her to see a giggling Aquino, along with the rest of her servants. All of them and one more. Lady E. Rias addressed in surprise, seeing Yidra standing behind Kaneko with a hand on her head. The Nico raised a hand in greeting. Yo. Oh Yidra. I haven't dreamed of you in some time, Uftang greeted with a chuckle. Uftang, Yidra greeted, not looking away from whatever work she was doing in Kaneko's mind. Kaneko jabbed her thumb over her shoulder at Yidra. She wanted to be dramatic. A goddess needs some flair, Yidra said with a dismissive tone as she glanced at the devil princess. Rias Gremory. I took the liberty of holding your peerage back in case the Sultana became involved. Rias raised an eyebrow. I appreciate the sentiment, but was she likely to? Very, Gactha said gravely, making a shiver run up Rias's spine for some reason. I'll assume you have this under control, Rias, Sona said, giving her friend a look. If you need anything, we'll be nearby. Rias nodded as she left, grateful for the offer, even if she had doubted Sona could help much if this somehow took a wrong turn. Yidra turned to Valley and Azazel. You're both free to leave as well. Do give our regards to the royal couple, Azazel said with a smile. Wait a minute, Valley spoke up. Kid, stop while you're ahead, Azazel advised with a sigh, rubbing a hand over his face. You should heed his words, Valley, Albion advised, eyeing the presence of various eldritch gods with unease. Uftang looked down. Ah, the dividing brat speaks up. I heard about you getting killed in that war I slept through. It wasn't surprising that an eldritch god slept through the great war between the biblical factions, but it did take them a moment to comprehend that. I just wanted to ask who was calling me for help anyway? Valley questioned. They have many names, Yidra began. Don't you all? Kaneko deadpanned. The dream which might just have smiled at the comment. They are often known as the Lord of the Depths, a young eldritch god that guards the deep-sea rifts that lead to distant worlds. Rias opened her mouth and closed it, sharing a look with the others. They'd address that another time. Vala's interest piqued. I thought you said this dragon was beyond reach from this world? Valley questioned, glancing at Gactha. Beyond you, I said, Gactha corrected in annoyance. But please, do make that venture and save us the trouble of your presence. Despite everything, Valley seemed almost amused by her remark. I suppose I should rest after this misadventure, Valley agreed, knowing that Azazel ultimately was right. He shouldn't push his luck much more than this. Until next time. With that, both Valley and Azazel flew off. And yes, Rias, I did enjoy that, Aquino informed playfully as she stepped next to Rias. Perhaps you should consider trying it? Rias gave Aquino a deadpan expression. She just wants to teach you to slurp a tentacle, Kaneko remarked. Rias resisted every urge to ask if tentacles actually had been involved. Hee hee. With that, the devil looked back up at the colossal dragon in the bay, chuckling at them. You devils are always most amusing, so uninhibited, unlike humans, Uftang said good-naturedly. I shall take my leave of here. If the Kungur does not visit me with the queen soon, I shall return to my slumber. I hope that you might still be alive when I awaken, young devils. With that, the eldritch god turned to leave, soon going from walking to swimming. With a shimmer, they saw him vanish and become like a tsunami, one rushing out to sea. I have to ask, Kiba said with a frown, looking at Yidra. How dangerous was that one? He was obviously holding back against that Valley character. Yidra chuckled. He is comparable to Cthulhu at his apex. And why is he here anyway? Is he one of the eldritch who came with the queen, or has he already been here for ages? Rias asked curiously. Oh no, he's just been taking a vacation here for a couple centuries, Yidra answered, getting surprised looks. Don't be so shocked. Earth is an interesting place, one guaranteed not to end while one slumbers for an eon or two. Well, I guess it wasn't too off the mark about calling him Godzilla, Kiba said in jest. He thinks he is Godzilla, Gaktha informed flatly. Every non-eldritch head turned to her. What? Kaneko asked blankly. Uftang thinks the Godzilla movies are based on him. He's rather proud of that, Yidra informed. We'd prefer if you didn't, as you might say, burst his bubble. Honestly, you could have just said they were inspired by him and we wouldn't have questioned it, Akino helpfully pointed out with a smile. Gaktha and Yidra shared a look. We should have thought of that, Yidra commented, getting a nod from the priestess of Azathoth. Akino, your ability to understand the Eldritch continues to concern me, Rhea said, only half joking. Akino just giggled. Meanwhile, Oi, Issei said as he rubbed his forehead as he sat on a rooftop. You alright, Issei? Yag asked in concern. Yeah, just some of that other timeline stabbing me in the brain, Issei assured. The one where you nearly died getting stuck between Uftang and Valley, or the one after that where Azza started mind-breaking some of the devils by accident? Yag asked curiously. Azza shifted her feet, a hand rubbing her arm, as did another tentacle that had absently emerged from her back. Believe it or not, the second, Issei said with a frown. He didn't fully remember those events that never happened. Just images. Sona being sacrificed in his name by her own deranged peerage, Kaneko losing her mind and beginning to eat people, a vengeful and broken Seraphal clashing with an eldritch god he didn't know, and a few more things. Well, I'd say I'm not quite in the same class as the Satans yet, Issei mused as he recalled scenes of Seraphal fighting. Definitely not Rias's brother. He's a super devil, Yag informed helpfully. Is that really what they call it? Issei asked in surprise and amusement. Yep. Yag informed, glancing over to the silent demon Sultana. Anyway, I'll take my leave so you two can get to work on the makeup sex. Neither party said anything as Yag left, the night sky twinkling above them. Well, twinkling for them. Light pollution wasn't something they were affected by. Most eldritch, especially the gods, could see the stars clearly through any atmosphere. I'm sorry, Azza said softly. I would have hurt a lot of our devil friends with that. Yeah, you would have, Issei agreed with a sigh. There was no point in sugarcoating. Without Yag and Yad, they would have lost their new friends and ruined a lot of the goodwill between them and the devils. But they did have Yag and Yad, and luckily Uftang appeared to be the reasonable sort. Some part of Issei was glad he was no longer human enough to be really, truly traumatized by what he recalled of the aborted timelines. He was bothered by them, but it was an inconvenience? Something he would remember but also something he could get over, in any case. I knew there was something Yag didn't want me to peek at when she told me to reschedule my plans for us to visit Uftang. But then I saw that white wretch fighting Uftang, so I peeked and I saw you, dying, and I couldn't help it and dash. Azza. Issei spoke up before she kept going. You're kind of destroying your human form. Azza blinked and looked down. She had a crab arm for a right leg and her left had mouths all over it. Her right arm had twisted and split into some weird parody of arms, and uselessly misshapen bat wings curled from around her back. And one of her eyes had turned into a tiny star of madness, bestowing insanity upon any weak-minded mortal unlucky enough to look upon it. Oh, Azza said absently as she began to reform her regular appearance, shaking her leg to get rid of the mouths and rubbing her eye to turn it back to normal. Azza, I get it, Issei said with a reassuring smile. Mostly anyway. I barely remember that first timeline. You got pissed that I nearly died. I got a little pissed over what would have happened to our friends. Especially Kaneko. Dear fuck, that Nico needs a break. Azza still looked down as Issei spoke. The Kungur sighed and rose, placing a hand on her shoulder. Just, next time? Come to me before you go off like that, okay? We're eternal, we have Yad and Yog. We literally have all the time in the universe to figure out what to do with shit like this. I know, but you know that I can be impulsive, I believe would be the word? Especially if it's about you, Azza reminded apologetically. And I usually like it when you're impulsive. Just, remember, a lot of our friends are a bit more fragile than us, Issei requested. Okay, Azza said softly. Issei, you know I'm not human, right? Or anything close. I don't feel guilty in the way you still might. I'm sad it upset you. I feel like I owe Akino a favor for what happened to her in the other timeline. I feel like a genuine blind idiot for not seeing how doing all that would turn out. But I don't feel guilt about what almost happened. Yeah, I gathered as much, Issei acknowledged, rubbing the back of his head. Back before you made me an eldritch? When I was just a horny bastard, happy to get a date. Well, I doubt that old version of me would have told Yog to make Valley remember what you did to him. Ozza blinked. You did? Issei chuckled sheepishly. I told Yog to put the fear of us into him. I wanted to make the asshole pay a little bit, even if it was just one big misunderstanding, Issei said as he reached down to take hold of Ozza's hand. Because, well, he upset you. And I hate seeing you upset too. Ozza smiled adoringly at him, leaning up to kiss him on the lips. It was far more chaste than their usual shows of affection, but it was no less heartfelt. Maybe they won't have make-up sex, Yog remarked as she observed the pair from her own realm. Give them time, they'll probably start once they get home, Yad added in. Everything turn out okay? Yog questioned to Yad. Yad shrugged. A few humans nearby took a hit to their sanity. They might be joining someone's cult in the near future. Other than that, the devils will be fine. Good, we wouldn't want to damage the Kungur's toys, Yog said with a chuckle. He wouldn't appreciate you calling them that, Yad pointed out. But Akino would definitely appreciate it, Yog countered slyly. Yad gave her a look. Appreciation is a very weak synonym for arousal. End of chapter. Well, there's the answer to why Valley picked a fight with an eldritch god. Man got a message for help, thought ET was an invitation to a fight, and found the wrong dragon. But yeah, he's got to live with the memories of what Ozza almost did and made him experience. He's laying it cool, but that moment will stick with him in the long term. Everyone else got to go home with their minds intact while Issei and Ozza had a sweet yet strange moment together. Yeah, Ozza doesn't feel guilt the same way mortals does. Part of the little reminder that under their human personas, they're still eldritch gods. Rosswise flew just above the wickwood with keen eyes. To the normal humans, it was just a forest they were trying to preserve about 2 square miles in size. But to the supernatural there was definitely something more going on here. There is a hidden place in this forest, she said to herself. This must be where Lady Frigg wanted me to search. She flew down and felt a slight resistance as she passed through some field that the mundane were unable to perceive or comprehend. She descended past the canopy and frowned as she found the forest to be dark and ancient. Just looking about, she could see that the trees were old with roots that ran deep into the earth. Careful where you fly. Rosswise turned in an instant with her spear materializing in hand, pointed at the speaker. She froze at the sight of a beautiful black-haired woman with a circlet of green vines around her head. You might find yourself ensnared, warrior maiden of the one-eyed, she said with a deceptively friendly smile. Titania, queen of the Fae and the Gilak of Tir Na Nog, Rosswise recognized with cautious respect. Lady Frigg said I would probably meet you. I expected nothing less from the foreseeing queen, Titania said fondly as she strolled amongst the trees. Sometimes she seemed to phase right through them. I'm sure she always warned you to be wary of myself and my kind. Many consider us similar to those gods seen as foreign not only to this world but to this reality. Rosswise let her silence speak for her. Do not fret, we will not deter you. We deter none who venture here, Titania said as she paused, placing a hand on a tree, stroking in an almost loving way. This forest is not mine. Rosswise blinked. What do you mean? I thought all the forests of Britain were under your power? They are, or were in this case, Titania said fondly. I gifted these lands away to house one that was lost and could not find a way home. It is under that one's power now. Many have come here, seeking power for themselves. Those you might call witches who took the knowledge they could handle. Others ventured further, and those that were not lost became guards of the lost one. She paused, looking at the Valkyrie with her ancient, mystical eyes. Be careful. They will not trust you. Warriors of more than one god have come here to claim or destroy the source of the power here, she warned. Rosswise chose her words carefully. Would a word from you not assure them that I mean no harm? Perhaps, Titania said with a mischievous look. But if you were meant to help the lost one to become found, then you will overcome such an inconvenience without my aid. Rosswise had more to ask, but just as suddenly as she came, the queen of the Fae vanished, her form becoming one with one of the trees as her presence vanished. When even the Fae tell you to tread carefully, Rosswise murmured to herself before looking around. There wasn't a true path, but there was a pull in the air. To the mundane, probably a lure to trap them. To her, a lead. The Valkyrie set forth, walking through the forest with her sword at her side. As she went, the greenery became greener. At first, it was just simple things like taller grass, thicker bushes, and denser treetops. Then it was moss and vines up and down the trunks of the trees. And at last, she found where the green bled into everything. A verdant glow below the bark of the trees, like veins in the very wood. The very soil had a viridescent hint to it, as if stained and corrupted by it. Even the air she exhaled seemed to carry a faint chartreuse mist about it. Rosswise was aware of the insidious whispers in the back of her head as she looked down at herself, just to see something of another color. Voices imitating her own, saying how it was wrong that she was not green, that she should cover herself in it. Her eyes went to the side, seeing a corpse on a tree. He had been some ancient knight who had found himself here, and succumbed to the green, and the green took him. He was overtaken by roots and vines, with his long dry bones covered entirely in moss with flowers all about him. She looked keenly around, seeing many more graves of those who had the misfortune of passing through here. It was a deceptively peaceful place for being a collection of graves. You would make for some wonderful fertilizer. She stopped in her tracks, looking around carefully for the voice. Show yourself. I mean no harm if you mean none to me, she said cautiously. Oh, do not worry, stranger. A voice, neither male nor female, spoke from her right. The moss moved and shifted to form the likeness of a face upon the trees. I am not a killer, merely a tender. The tender here, the tender answered in amusement. I merely distribute the fertilizer, the nutrients of the bodies that lay in this place. Rosswise didn't exactly relax at that, but didn't draw her blade either. The moss eyes narrowed curiously at her. Tell me, are you a witch, perchance? One seeking power from nature. I cannot say that I am, Rosswise denied. A pity? Those are always special, the tender said with a sigh that let loose a cloud of fungus. Rosswise leaned away from that, not trusting it in the slightest. I seek an audience with this lost one that lives here. The tender chuckled as his face moved from tree to tree. Perhaps you will be left here. The guardians hop to it when it comes to killing interlopers that reach their village. Your intent will not matter to them. That much I was already warned of, Rosswise said with a frown. Can you point me in the right direction? The forest shifted, moving even with no wind to be felt, and Rosswise saw a path of red flowers form before her very eyes. Follow them, and they will lead you to the glade of the witches. You can find your own way from there. But be warned, others in this forest are not so polite as I, the tender warned before his wicked smile stilled and vanished. Rosswise looked from where the entity had been to the path of roses before her. Might be a trap. After all, there was no reason to believe the tender truly wanted to help her in any way. Still, it was her only lead, the only way out of this haze of green. She wasn't sure how long she followed the roses. Time likely wasn't a fixed factor here. Yet as she continued down the path, she found the all-consuming green fading. True, there were still leaves and grass that felt more vibrant than they should, but she could actually see the brown of dirt and bark now, along with the colors of other flowers dotting the landscape. Not to mention she caught a peek of the blue sky as well through the canopy. At last, she reached her destination. The roses brought her to a glade, just as the tender said. In the center of the clearing was a small pond. It was just wide enough for a person to lie within. Around the pool were what appeared to be pillars, but as Rosswise moved close, she saw what they truly were. The bodies of women, 6 in total, witches most likely. Each was kneeling around the pond, their hands limp and open at their sides with lifeless eyes staring into the waters. Their skin was deathly pale with a tinge of green about them. Their bodies were covered in strands of long grass that had grown up and circled around them as if trapping them even in death to this place. Perhaps they were. Rosswise looked down into the pond, the reflection far too clear and perfect to be natural. It was more like a mirror than a body of water. Is this what Lady Frigg meant? She asked herself as she reached for a pouch on her hip. From it, she pulled out an orb that was white and glowing, covered in rotating bands with magic runes. It floated in her hand for a moment before magic runes vanished, and the orb floated high above the pool, just above the trees. The orb expanded and grew brighter, the light turning a soft silver. The sky around them grew dark, leaving only the orb as it reflected into the pool as an imitation of the moon. The pool of the glade burst with power as it became a portal, a dark and murky one. Why have you come, warrior of the Aesir? Rosswise stopped, looking at the bodies again. The corpses were all staring at her with their sightless eyes. I've come to meet with the lost one, Rosswise answered firmly. Who are you? We are those that peered too deeply. The lost one brings a window to the abyss. Through it, witches gain great power. If they are not claimed by it in turn, we are those claimed by that power. Rosswise took that in grimly, her face resolved. That isn't why I'm here. We know, they all spoke as one, their tone almost apologetic. You wish to take the lost one home, or so your gods claim. But the glade will not allow us to let you pass so easily. As one, the 6 Glade witches stood as green magic formed around their hands. Roswise held her blade at the ready as she observed her foes for any movement. I hope at the least that you all find peace when I end you here. Meanwhile, you have a sister? Issei asked in surprise. Kaneko was almost annoyed by the question. She hadn't been planning on meeting with the Eldritch King today, but she was just grateful his queen wasn't here. Well, not really. Kaneko glanced at the Aza next to Issei as they sat at a table for lunch. Everyone in Rias and Sona's peerage was aware of this, that the demon Sultana had some sort of double that stood in for her. More than an illusion, something that warped mundane students into thinking everything was normal with Aza and not noticing anything amiss. While it didn't have the same danger as being near the real thing, Kaneko was still a bit uneasy about just being near her likeness. The Aza double smiled at Kaneko and the Nico felt her hair stand on end. It might not be the real thing, but the queen could definitely gaze through it. And her gaze carried a terrible weight. Kaneko turned her focus back on Issei and kept it firmly on him. He asked if I cared what happened to her. I assumed that she got into trouble with some of the Eldritch, she explained dryly. Whatever it is, nobody brought it to my attention yet. Which is either really good or really bad for her, Issei mused, giving her a strange look. Though, is there a reason you wouldn't care about your sister? Kaneko scowled. Yid was in your mind, so she wouldn't ask that if there wasn't a reason, Issei remarked before blinking and turning sheepish. Sorry, I was thinking aloud mostly there. If it's too personal, you don't have to say anything. Kaneko looked at him skeptically. Aren't you just going to ask E or that time god of yours? Hey, I'm not a creep like that. Granted, they might tell me anyway if it's somehow tied into why they're asking about her at all, Issei said honestly. Kaneko nodded, mulling over what to say if anything. Issei, however, frowned and narrowed his eyes as he looked to the side. Neither Yag or Yid had piped in at being mentioned. Something must have their attention right now. One more thing to worry about. His face softened into a smile as he felt Aza lean against him, wrapping one of her arms around his. He grinned at the double, knowing that the real Aza could see it. Then he leaned in and kissed her, giving her a peck on the lips. The double giggled, but he could sense Aza fuming at being teased like this. Still right here, Kaneko remarked as a reminder. She stiffened as the double looked at her again with a smile. What's the matter, little kitten? Do you want a kiss too? Kaneko couldn't answer, grabbing the table so hard her knuckles turned white. She inhaled sharply as a foot touched her own. She tore her eyes back to Issei, who was smiling reassuringly at her. She released her grip on the table, sighing in relief. Aza says sorry about that. She can't really stop her double from interacting with you if you talk to her, Issei explained sympathetically. Koenko nodded. My bad, she said, subtly reaching down to check to see if she had wet herself again. She hadn't, mercifully. What is she doing anyway? She asked, knowing she probably wouldn't like or understand the answer. Oh, nothing. She just left so we could talk, Issei answered with a shrug. Yid said the double was safe for you to be around. Kaneko blinked and made an effort not to look at Aza in confusion. She knew. Our time god, as you put her, said you'd be trying to talk to me today and Aza decided to head elsewhere for today, Issei explained. Kaneko started. You knew I was going to talk to you, but you didn't ask what it'd be about? What, you want me to come off as some all-knowing asshole that's playing 20 moves ahead of everyone? Sorry, not my thing, Issei answered with a chuckle. Kaneko hummed. She just focused on Issei's foot on hers and how it kept her feeling grounded and safe right now. Meanwhile, taking out the witches had been rather easy. Too easy, truly. Their magic called forth the very forces of nature against Roswise. With plants, earth, and water at their beck and call, they would prove a terrible challenge to most that might come this way. But her own magical power was nothing to ignore. Her circles of elemental magic and explosions had ripped through them rather handily, leaving only the broken and withered corpses of these old witches. It wasn't until the battle ended that she noticed the faint purple mist that emitted from the corpses, fading into the air. The Valkyrie's eyes widened and gritted her teeth as she felt her body getting sluggish and her vision hazy. Poison? She realized grimly, cursing her carelessness. Of course, there would be a poison factor with enemies like this, routed in nature magic. It wouldn't kill her, she could tell that much, but it would make her weak and vulnerable until it got out of her system. She steeled herself and moved to the pond at the center of the glade. At the very least, the other side of it wouldn't have this poison in the air. She stopped at the edge just to make sure the portal was still open before she jumped in and landed. On her ass. Was that the poison affecting me, or did the entire world just tilt 90 degrees? She asked herself uncertainly as she sat up. She was in a cave now, a small and cramped one, like a crack in a wall more than anything. Still, the air was fresh and clean, if a bit damp. She placed a hand over her mouth as she began to cast some minor healing magic on herself. If nothing else, it would help her body clear the substance out of her system. Slowly, carefully, she got to her feet and began to move forward in hopes of finding an exit. The path went on for a while, with the tight walls of jagged stone threatening to cut her. If she were a normal human, she would have many lacerations just from trying to move through here. Eventually, she came to a steep slope upwards, a bright light coming from an opening at the top of it. The steep and muddy climb might have proven difficult if one couldn't fly with magic. With a press off her feet, she soared up to the exit, only for her powers to give out, making her yelp as she fell and rolled down the slope. What just? Roswise asked to herself, covered in mud now from her tumble. She tried once more, flying slowly while remaining closer to the ground. Right as she reached the light, her magic gave out again. Luckily, she was able to stop her fall from going all the way down and merely slid a few feet down. Something is canceling out my magic, she murmured. I guess I just have to climb the rest with my own hands. And so she did. It was a hard thing, the wet ground beneath her constantly wanting to send her down to the bottom if she slipped or grabbed the wrong loose stone. Not to mention she was worried. What awaited her past this point? What kind of foes might she have to fight with her powers suppressed? One thing at a time though, as she found herself at the top finally. It was still too bright for her to see just yet, and as she tried to pull herself over the top, her foot gave way. She nearly cursed as she felt herself about to fall and possibly end up at the bottom when something stopped her. She looked up and saw a hand grabbing her wrist. She looked up and was surprised to see a woman. A woman with very distinct ears. Bunny ears? Roswise realized with a furrowed brow. That was all she got to say before a fist impacted her head, and her world went black. End of chapter. Mostly a Roswise chapter of all things. Was not planned, but it happened. She's made her way through the woods to the Lost One, getting words of warning fro Fae Queen of all people. If you're wondering, this Titania is more or less the one from ancient Magus's bride. And Kaneko talked a bit with Issei about her sister, bravely risking more sanity damage. Issei, meanwhile, is more curious that Yid and Yog haven't popped in. Also, one or two people tried to say that Yog should be stronger than Aza. I've seen interpretations go either way, honestly. Both are fair, but I prefer the idea of Azathoth the dreamer outmatch Yog, time merely being a concept she dreamt up to try and make sense of things. That's what I used when I made the Love Azathoth CYOA and this FIC. And if you find yourself hopelessly in danger, pray. Roswise hissed in pain as she awoke, feeling the ache in her head from where she had been struck. She wasn't dead, but it certainly hurt. She tried to reach for it, and only when she realized her hands were bound did she notice her predicament. She was on her knees and bound in something like a stockade, both hands restrained at either side of her head with her neck stuck as well. Ropes of some kind bound her legs down wherever she knelt. She took a breath and blinked open her eyes, adjusting to the light as she took in her surroundings. It was a primitive village of some sort, with huts and wooden buildings. Yet plants were growing all over the structures. It was all situated in a large circle of a clearing, the sun shining down on them with the sound of a soft flowing river flowing nearby. There was a crowd around her, maybe even the whole village. All of them were women. But not mere human women. So you're awake. Roswise craned her neck to see someone standing over her in armor and a cloak. Like everyone else she could see, she looked beautiful and alluring. And they were, truly, but that was all a mundane eye would notice. Roswise saw them for what they were. Each one of them was strong with some amount of muscles and scars upon their bodies. These women were warriors and they were no strangers to battle. More importantly, they all had the ears and tails of rabbits. Bunny women as it would be. Are you the leader of this village? Roswise asked as she regained her senses. The white-haired bunny woman nodded. I am, and my name is Tully. You are not a mere human, are you? Roswise nodded with a scowl despite being bound. I am a Valkyrie, a servant of the Aesir. I have been sent here to find the Lost One, the one called the Green God. There were murmurs, scoffs, and glares from the crowd as Tully narrowed her eyes. Many have tried, few have made it this far. Fewer still have made it past us. I can see why. The presence of the Lost One hinders the powers of everyone who enters here, doesn't it? Roswise predicted. Making them easy prey for you. The Lost One has made this place a sanctuary. We guard this place and the Lost One in exchange for the gifts we have been bestowed, Tully said simply. Your gods have no power here. Let's just kill her already, someone in the crowd yelled, others howling their agreement. Enough, Tully declared, slamming her foot down to silence them all. She has made it this far. She has earned the right to partake in the hunt. Rosweiss frowned. She didn't like the sound of that. And just what will I be hunting? The village of bunny women laughed at her question. Oh no, you're not the hunter, Tully informed with a smirk. We will be hunting you. Yep, she was right, she really didn't like the sound of that. Of course you can refuse, Tully offered with a whimsical shrug. We'll make your death painless if you decline. Rosweiss took a breath before nodding. I'll take your challenge. Meanwhile, welcome home, master, Ektosa and Tala greeted, bowing to him as he entered the room. Tosa Talhu, he greeted in turn with a smile. Has Yog or Yad come over by chance? Not to our awareness, Ektosa answered honestly. If they did not make themselves known, Ektalu expanded on. Point, issei murmured. I don't suppose either of you would know what's keeping them busy? The twins shook their heads in sync. Issei hummed. He could just call out and get Yog or Yad to appear, but if it was important, they'd tell him eventually. A more immediate question came to mind. Is Asia here? She is in her room, master, Ektalu answered, waving to the closet. Do you desire her, master? Ektosa questioned curiously. I definitely do, but that's not what this is about, Issei answered honestly as he went over and knocked on the door. Asia? Are you awake? One moment, Issei, the blonde's voice rang out before the door opened to reveal the nun. Do you need something? I was actually wondering if you wanted to head out and spend the day at the mall? Issei asked with a smile. Asia blinked, a small blush forming on her face. I'll like a date? I mean, if you want it to be? Issei answered with a bashful smile. I just know you don't get out a lot, so I thought I should show you around town. Asia blushed a bit but didn't stop smiling. I would enjoy that, Issei. Just give me a moment. The door closed, leaving Issei with the twins once more. Ektosa and Ektalu stared at him rather pointedly. Issei felt their gaze and turned to them questioningly. What? Did you two want to come along? No, master, Ektalu answered evenly. Not at all, master, Ektosa added. Issei gave them a skeptical look but didn't say anything further. The door opened to reveal Asia in a casual pale purple sundress that ended just above her knees. Her green eyes shyly glanced from the floor to Issei. How do I look? Issei took a deep breath. Like an angel, he answered fondly, making her flush and squirm. Shall we, madam? He asked in a playfully over-the-top voice as he made a faux bow while extending his hand to her. Asia giggled at the act. It would be my pleasure, she said as boldly as she could. Issei grinned. Just remember not to say anything until we're out of the house. Asia nodded in remembrance. She didn't quite understand it, but there was some kind of eldritch magic at work that made Issei's parents not notice her if she didn't draw attention to herself when she entered or left the house. Soon they were off on their way for a day of simple fun and enjoyment. If Issei noticed the smiling yellow eyes watching them, he didn't draw attention to them. Meanwhile, Rosweiss had been released from the stockade and left outside the village, halfway to the forest. With her was another bunny woman, this one with light brown hair. The rules of the hunt are simple, the bunny woman said with a smile that was somewhere between vicious and helpful. She pointed up to the sun, growing near to the horizon. Once the sun touches the horizon, you may run into the forest. We will not come after you until it has fully set. About an hour then, Rosweiss realized with a frown. I don't suppose I'll have access to my powers? Afraid not, the bunny woman said unapologetically. Now here's how the hunt goes. There are pools in the forest that if you reach them, you can escape from here unharmed. If you go past them and keep searching without being caught, you will eventually find a tree with purple and green fruit. Eat it and you will become one of us. And how do I win without leaving or joining? Do I have to defeat you all or survive until sunrise, or? Rosweiss asked in confusion. That has only happened twice, the bunny remarked. If you keep going, you will eventually find your way back to the village. If you reach it, you will win and be allowed to meet the lost one. Rosweiss furrowed her brow. I'm not trying to insult your skills, but what stops me from just sneaking around and coming back to the village? I was wondering if you'd ask or just try that, the bunny woman said, clapping her hands together. You see, the forest will see to that. It's not a normal one. Once you get in, it doesn't matter which path you take, only how far you travel. Eventually you'll find the pools, the trees, and then just pop out back at the village. Right. The Eldritch are fond of these non-Euclidean designs, Rosweiss said with a sign. Eldritch? What's that? The bunny asked curiously. Oh, I suppose you might not know that term. It's what we call entities like the Green God, Rosweiss answered. Might I ask what happened to the other two? That one? The only man to reach here took one of us as his bride and left, she answered thoughtfully. The other, well. Rosweiss rose an eyebrow. The bunny woman leaned in to whisper. We're not certain, but we're pretty sure that it was Lady Titania who somehow time-traveled here. Rosweiss blinked. Somehow that didn't surprise her. She shook her head and looked to see the sun inching down. I'd ask for advice, but I doubt you want me to succeed. The bunny woman just smiled like a mysterious murderer. Get ready, your head start is about to begin. Rosweiss nodded, looking back to see many of the villagers standing at the side of the village, each looking eager and ready for the hunt. She turned back to the forest and the sun, tensing her body. She pushed down some internal dread, hoping that her clumsiness didn't end with her getting boiled alive in a stew. Meanwhile, Issei and Asia had made their way to the mall, where the young king took her to various places of entertainment. Music shops, an arcade, a few different food stands, and even a clothes store. Well, looks like Issei is having a fun time, Akino said with a giggle as she spied them from across the mall. Would that cute girl I spy with him be Asia? That's her, yeah. Akino hummed and looked over to the speaker. I was wondering when you were going to speak up, Lag. The Eldritch of Doom gave her a side eye as he leaned on a pillar. Are you following the king or something? Oh no, nothing like that. I just came to do some shopping and saw Issei on his little date, Akino said with a sigh. A shame. I wouldn't have minded a day with him. You already warm his bed. Is there a reason to continue these courting exercises? Lag asked with raised eyebrows. Akino shook her head. Love is about more than just mating for us, Lag. We enjoy displays and acts of affection just for the sake of it being from our beloved. Lag hummed. Eldritch like me have a hard time grasping things like love. Like you? Akino asked curiously. I wasn't born from a womb, Lag said, glancing up at the ceiling. There is a long-forgotten world that many different Eldritch attacked at the same time. That planet's doom was so certain, that I was born in its dying moments from the divine blood spilt there. Those like me born out of chaos and accidents with no progenitor to be linked to? Certain connections, socializing? Things can be strange to us. I see, Akino said in thought before narrowing her eyes as she glanced down again. Lag, is that one with you? Lag was already looking to where she met. There was a man following the pair from halfway across the mall. A human would find the ragged and twitching businessman very suspicious and off-putting, but the crowd around him paid him no mind and he slipped through among them, a weak camouflage of the Eldritch sort. No. And that's why I'm here. Do you mind if I help? Akino asked. From what little I know of you, you'll come along anyway even if I say no, Lag said with a sigh. Akino smiled playfully. My, how observant of you. The twitching man crept closer and closer to Issei and Asia as they went through the mall. As they entered another store, he deemed this his moment and sped after them with a crazed and rabid look as he rounded the corner and charged into the store, and found himself elsewhere. Instead of some shop in a mall, the man found himself in a parking lot. Don't bother running. The maddened man turned to see him, the horseman of doom, perdition himself. Lag leisurely rode on his motorcycle towards the foe, man and vehicle warping and twisting into the eldritch flesh of his true form. The sky darkened, and the stars seemed to die just as they appeared, and all around them the cars and pavement began to rot and rust and rupture before Lag's very power. My, Akino said from one side, sitting on a ruined car with lightning dancing between her fingertips. Is this one really so worrisome for all this, Lag? The man had a broken, permanent grin on his face as he carelessly pulled a weapon from his shirt with his left hand. It was an overly thick dagger with a blade that curved back and forth, with a green eye at the hilt, the orb looking between the devil and the eldritch. Tread carefully, Thunderbringer, Lag warned. A nature like my own dwells within that blade. I see, Akino said, narrowing her eyes. Ha-ho-he-ho, the man laughed with the laugh of many distinctly different people at once. His body began to convulse as his head twitched and twisted at a blurrily fast speed. His skin bulged and twisted into a black and green mess of meat and bones on the left arm, going up to his head which had now mutated into having one large and off-centered eye. Once more what was left of the man looked to Lag and something spoke through the body. We need not be enemies. We should be united in our very natures, to bring about the end of ends, O great Rid Dash. The voice got no further as one of the horse legs of Lag's lower body stomped on the ground, sending a fissure of ruin forth that erupted upon the possessed cultist and tore his body to pieces. No, Lag said simply to whatever might still be listening. Ha ho he ho, the head laughed, even lacking lungs to speak. Lag tilted his head. Why do you dash? He stopped as he realized it. The dagger was missing, as was the hand that held it. Lightning crashed down before Lag and struck the flying limb out of the air before it could strike him. For good measure, Aquino brought lightning down upon all the body parts, with enough power to reduce them to dust. You have my thanks, priestess of Gremory, Lag said as he turned around, flesh tendrils sprouting from his arm to grab the blade and pick it up. Aquino approached cautiously, looking at the eldritch weapon. What is it? A blade touched by a mad god, one seeking the end of all that the demon Sultana has wrought, Lag answered, squeezing his hand and turning the blade to dust. So, everything, Aquino summarized with a frown. Should we tell Issei? Already no. Aquino started in surprise, turning around to see Issei with a certain time goddess. Issei? Yet? How long dash? Yet just brought me here, Issei answered with a wave, yet nodding in greeting. She told me you stopped someone from interfering on my date with Asia earlier. Earlier? Aquino repeated. So you are? From the future a little bit, yeah, Issei said, brushing the back of his head. You get used to it. I was worried we interrupted your date, Aquino said before turning to the elder god of time with a smile. Yad. It has been a while since we spoke. I hope your other self is doing well? Yad just nodded to her. Thank you for your assistance. Lag might have been slain if not for you. That blade could kill an eldritch god? Aquino asked with a frown. Or cripple them at the least, Lag answered, shifting back into his human form and motorcycle. It definitely could have killed me, Issei said with a scowl. Which was the goal, obviously. Aquino raised an eyebrow. I know I shouldn't ask for a name dash. The Waiting Dark and the Destroying Eye are his titles, Lag explained, leaning on the handlebars with his arms crossed. Like I said, he wants to end everything. And he'll take any progress he can get towards that goal. Like killing Issei and causing Azathoth to destroy the entire Earth, Aquino said with a frown. Honestly, Earth would be far from the only planet screwed over by that, Issei said with a head shake. Still, thanks for the help, Aquino. Aquino smiled at the young king. My pleasure. Right, so, I'm going to clean up this pocket dimension and head back to guarding the boss in the present, Lag said, turning to drive off. I suppose that means you have to head back to the future, Mr. Time Traveler? Aquino asked playfully. Well, I could. Or I could take a long way around, Issei said with a grin. Aquino had a very interesting look. Oh. For me this was yesterday. So while yesterday me is taking Asia on a date, how about tomorrow me takes you on a date as well? Issei asked, chuckling. And yeah, I know that sounds a bit corny and stupid, but it was kind of fun to say. I can imagine, Aquino said. And if you want to treat me to a day on the town, well, who am I to refuse the wishes of the mighty Eldritch King? Yad coughed to remind them she was there. I'll make sure nothing interrupts you unless it's the queen herself. With a portal opening slash, she left the two as well. Shall we, madam? Issei asked playfully, sticking out an arm to her. As you desire, your highness, Aquino answered, taking his arm. Once they had all left, none were left to see the dust gathering to reform the destroying dagger, lying innocently on the ground. With the pocket space ending, it would appear abandoned in the parking lot for any unsuspecting human to find. It would, of course, if someone else hadn't picked it up. The eye in the blade dilated and twitched in fear as a hand reached down and picked the weapon up lazily. Yellow eyes glowed malevolently as she stared into the green orb. Now, you've had your fun enough now, Saega, Nirely cooed playfully. And, as a punishment, you lose this toy. The eye of the blade began to bulge in pain as cracks of pale light began to form all over the blade and hilt. Without a mouth, the blade screamed and dissolved into true nothingness. I'm sure that hurt, Nirely said with a chuckle as she crossed her arms. But you shouldn't have tried to interrupt his date like that. Just as she had appeared, the messenger of the gods disappeared without a trace to be found, with only a whisper to herald her departure. Have fun, Daddy. End of chapter. Well, Rosweiss is being hunted by a tribe of flesh-eating bunny girls, Issei is on a date with Asia, and time traveled to have its date with Aquino after she helped Lag deal with the plot of a mad god. And to top it all off, Nirely made sure said mad god couldn't interrupt her daddy's date any further. All in all, just another day in the life of the Kungur and beloved of Azathoth. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub and share.